Welcome, Rianne. Welcome to the Inner Healing World. My name is Margarita Bennett, and I'm very grateful and blessed that you have agreed to hop on and have a chat with me about you and your process and what it is to be human, what it is to actually live within this human vessel that we're in, because we all have a different experience and a different journey. And I think sometimes it's really important to share our journey so that other people don't feel so alone. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm delighted, and I'm just going to give everybody a brief outline about you. So, you're Rianne Benson, and you are an RAF veteran. You are also a health and movement coach, a massage therapist, and a specialist in riding therapy. Horse riders living with trauma, pain, and autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, yeah. So we work with them around their bodies and movement, biomechanics and things like that. So yeah.
It's amazing. Before we begin, you're also in the process of setting up a non-profit organization providing healing retreats for anyone with challenges of trauma, injury, and disease. Layer to everything that you've achieved, you also suffer from rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah. Which has kind of been a bit of a prompt for where I'm wanting to move forward to as well. So yeah.
Do we begin with how you got into horse riding? Is that a passion that you've always had?
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm and we were lucky enough just to have ponies. I mean, it wasn't like you see these days with the matchy sets or anything. It was very much here's a bridle and a hairy pony. Just go and enjoy with your sisters, you know. So horses have always been part of my life, and I just find them so inspirational and therapeutic to be around. I've ridden my whole life, struggle with my body a lot for various reasons, which I'm sure we'll chat about. But basically, turns out I only knew this 2 years ago that I'm hypermobile. So actually trying to understand where my body was in space was really, really difficult with traditional riding coaching. So I've always sort of seen that effect on the horses and got frustrated by it. And evolution just happens through your life. Just people come into your life for reasons. So I got into more of the biomechanics side through an amazing lady called Mary Wanless from Ride With Your Mind. Just saw the massive effect that just by changing your body, how you can make your horse's life better. That paralleling my sort of journey alongside wanting to help people with pain, it's sort of come together into this reasonably niche, although there are a lot more people working in the field now.
How old were you when you joined the RAF?
I'd been 24, so I was a bit of a late joiner. I'd been and done various different things as well before that, and hadn't really had a lot of direction, except I knew I wanted to have my own business. But looking back, you realise 24 is actually still pretty young and you've still got a lot to learn. And I just didn't feel ready. So my other passion as I was growing up, I was in the Air Cadets, and I used to fly in the Air Cadets. So I decided to join the Air Force and couldn't do it as a pilot because I also had asthma when I was a kid. So there's a little bit of a theme here around the inflammatory stuff. And yeah, so I went travelling with my sister around Australia and just got back and realised I'm sick of having no money and no direction. And I went to the careers office and signed up. So yeah, so that was 2006.
And when did you leave?
2018.
Did you leave because of things happening to your system, or did you leave because it was kind of like, right, it's time to start a new career?
A bit of both, really. I think I'd had first of all, I was offered a 6-year contract with the Air Force, and then I was extended on after that, which was brilliant at the time, worked really well for me. Absolutely loved my work sort of early on in my career. But yeah, it's one of the things that like now I look back and I go, of course I was always injured because I was hypermobile. But not knowing that, I was like, I'm always broken. I'm always struggling with my fitness tests. That sort of put a lot of stress and pressure on me throughout the year of just trying to meet those standards you're expected to meet. And yes, there was that side of it. And then obviously the more senior you get, the more pressures there are. We had the defence cuts in 2010, which meant there were less people. So everything just seemed for me to get a lot more stressful. And I think always I was probably a little bit square peg round hole. I'm a bit too emotional, a bit too feeling, probably. And not that that's a bad thing. I just think that in that environment, it didn't really work. So I think there was a bit of a sense of me not really belonging there, even though I loved my job. I was quite poorly by the time I left. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I've been having years of panic attacks. back pain, which they were putting down to tension and things like that. It was time, and also I'd started looking more into what I would like to do afterwards, and I'd seen Jing, which I know we both trained with Jing's. So yeah, it just felt like time, and 12 years is sort of an option point as well. So when you're in the military, you get these points that you reach where you can leave, where it's kind of optimal around the sort of package you get in terms of training and financial support for leaving. Yeah, so it sort of was a good point.
Just to let our listeners know that basically Jing, the Advanced Massage School in Brighton, we both trained as clinical massage therapists. And so when you chose to do clinical massage, was that because of your pains and aches and you were trying to find your path and trying to understand how to not only help yourself but heal other people?
Definitely. I think so many of us are, aren't we? We become therapists because we have a curiosity and a life experience that has given us the empathy to try and help people in similar situations. So yeah, it was kind of the perfect option for moving forward. I've always loved to be hands-on. I did train in massage many, many years ago. I wanted to be a physio and basically spent too much time riding horses and flying aeroplanes and not enough time studying. Came out with 2 Ds at A-level, which was not enough to be a physiotherapist, understandably. So I went and did holistic therapies and found that I really enjoyed doing the massage. I always knew that I kind of wanted to be hands-on with people, helping people in pain and people who are frustrated by the pain because they don't have a root cause, they don't really have a diagnosis, and helping them to understand that how pain works within the human being rather than just the human body. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to.
I love how you kind of join the synergy of pain management and your horse passion, and how you've joined the two together, because obviously any sport comes with discomfort and adhesions and falls and all that kind of thing. I presume that now with the rheumatoid arthritis, it's quite difficult to be hands-on, or are you able to continue?
Yeah, so I sort of, how rheumatoid appeared in my life, I think had probably been going on for a lot longer than I was aware of. I think early in 2022, I'd started with foot pain, and I just put it down to being a bit bendy, and I've walked in the wrong shoes, but it just wasn't clearing up. But as ever, we're not very good at looking after ourselves, so you carry on. And then, yeah, so this then probably came to a bit of a head where I ended up in probably October 22, where my hands kind of resembled Mickey Mouse's. You know, they looked like they'd been blown up like balloons. It was terrible. It was so painful. So I did the whole thing. I think I know what this is. So I did let's get the 6 week to show that there is a pattern to this, record it. Then I went to my GP, who was amazing, did blood test. And as soon as that came back, I am fortunate enough in a way to be seropositive. So that's an easy diagnosis then. And so that's an antibody that is active in the system that is attacking that synovial fluid or synovial tissue that sits inside of our joints. So when you do a blood test and you find that, you can sort of say, yeah, that's rheumatoid arthritis. I got into the system pretty quickly. I think I saw someone in February, which was, pretty quick for the pressure that our NHS is under at the minute. So yes, so it all sort of happened, and then I'm sure we'll get on to drugs and medication management later, but at that point then, knowing what I had and that this was my life was quite a shock. And going from someone, I've never run a marathon, I've never been a super fit person, but I've always been fit. I walk miles, I got a dog, got horses, I look after them both myself. I'm in the gym because that's a habit I picked up in the military. And so to be quite incapacitated by this point was already quite frustrating. But again, press on because you kind of live in a bit of denial, I guess. But I'd reached a break point in my contract with the premises that I was renting for my clinic by August last year. And I just realised I was just letting people down all the time because I'd wake up and either the fatigue was too much or hands were too sore. It did progress on then into shoulders, ankles, knees, hips, my jaw, which was awful, and the top of my neck, which is really painful. So I was really, really struggling then to be consistently and reliably of any use to people. And so I closed my clinic down, which was pretty devastating.
It must have been really, really challenging, very hard, because this was your career, this was your gift.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt like I'd worked so hard to get to that point. Excuse me. One of the typical things I do have a chest infection, so I'm just going to drink water, bear with.
So if we back up a little bit, obviously you're in a very blessed position because doing clinical massage, we train with the knowledge of different conditions. So you kind of knew the signs, the symptoms. Somebody who's not trained and doesn't know, and you say that you had signs before with the pain in your foot. Can you describe a little bit more so that if somebody's potentially saying, I'm really tired and I've got this and I've got that, they have an idea of potentially what they should be looking for?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to, because this has been kind of revelationary for me as well. And I think things academically, but there's knowing and there's knowing. And like now, I look back and it just puts so many things together for me. And I think I was probably starting to suffer with this even before I got the pain in the feet, and probably as far back as 2015. I was having a lot of hip pain and a lot of spine pain. Also around about the time, even though I was eating reasonably well and I was exercising, I just could not stop gaining weight. And I remember going to see a doctor at that point, and basically being told all the same things, like eat less, move more. And we didn't really quite have fitness trackers probably as well by that point, but I'd written out everything that I do and a food diary, and I was like, I just don't understand it. And at the same time, I was under the physio for my spine pain, which they were putting down to stress. I was always tired, I was fatigued, there was this weight gains, this pain. So you're starting to see that if they would draw all that together, it would start to make sense. Also, my asthma had started, sort of reflared around this time as well. So I'd had no symptoms for years, since I was about 13. And so I look at that now and I go, look, there's a system in inflammation. And it's not a criticism, because it's just the way that modern medicine is set up now. But sometimes it's that whole holistic approach of actually putting all those things together. And maybe if at that point there'd been intervention, then maybe I wouldn't be where I am now. So it's a lesson for me, because it means as well I can take that forward and try and help people. And then if you fast forward, then, I'm putting this down to stress, I'm not sleeping, all this. And then, so 2022, the foot pain. So I was getting pain in the ball of my feet, into the sort of midfoot, where there's loads and loads of little joints. If people aren't, obviously not as interested in their anatomy as we could possibly be, then, there are a lot of little small joints in there, essentially foot. So I had a lot of pain there. And then where my Achilles tendon attached, so just under the heel, down the back of your heel, where that big thick tendon attaches into my foot, I was getting a lot of pain there.
But was the pain constant, or would it be intermittent that you could talk yourself out of it, kind of to say, well, it was the shoe, or was it a constant pain?
No, it was pretty constant. And this has been a feature for me. And it's not true for everyone. Again, people talk a lot about flares and things, but this sort of seemed to be pretty consistent and just wasn't going away. And I think, again, you just go, oh, it's just my body. I've just got to get used to it. But I think in between that, probably about 2021, I'd had a bit of hip pain and a bit of neuralgia, sort of pubic neuralgia. So with my lady bits, I was getting quite a bit of pain. So I've been referred then to an orthopedic consultant and to gynecology. And my consultant actually then, by that October, rang me and went, we've seen some of these little plaques within your hip joint that are suggestive of inflammatory arthritis. And at that point I went, funny story, my hands are a mess now as well. So that evolution from my hands from just my feet to my hands was kind of overnight. I literally can say on the 23rd of October 2022, I just woke up with hands that were incredibly painful. I can't even begin. The way that I describe rheumatoid pain is, if anyone's ever had a boil on the skin, it feels like a boil inside your joints. It feels like a really bad sprain all of the time in those joints that are affected. It's just miserable, frankly. But yeah, alongside of that, I had the fatigue. So, I was sleeping all night by this point, because I do sleep really, really well now. Sleep's really important to me. So I was sleeping all night, but I was still absolutely exhausted all the time. I felt like I had flu consistently. And then, this inflammation was then the sort of the light bulb moment of like, maybe there's something systemic going on. And then, like I say, from seeing the GP to formal diagnosis in the February, things kind of just got worse and worse and spread round. To be honest, it was in my wrists a lot then. And also I didn't have the rheumatic drug prescriptions by that point. So I was kind of trying to make do with anti-inflammatories, over-the-counter stuff, which was not helping at all. So January was on naproxen then after that. So yeah.
So, but it's interesting. I mean, in a way, that part of the reason why this podcast has been created is because what I want to do is get a new way of thinking, a new way of processing how we look at the human system.
Yeah.
Because due to history and how medicine has evolved, we've always looked at it in parts.
Yeah, definitely.
Physios, they look at a specific part. You know, you have shoulder pain, let's look at the shoulder without actually looking at the entire system. And it sounds that in your case, and most cases that I see personally in clinic, is that if you look at it overall, your diagnosis, as you say, would have come out much, much sooner.
Yeah. And I think we're so reliant on, and I get it because we're spending public money. So there has to be a black and white, this is disease, this is not disease. And I always call it the bell curve effect, because we say, right, all these people to this side of the bell curve as we go into it. So bell curve being reasonably slow curve up to a sharp curve up and then back down. We look at that bell curve in the middle, that big hump in the middle, and say, that's disease. So if you're over this or you're over, then you're not fitting into this. So there has to be lines for people to be diagnosed and treated. I get that. But, and with these diseases especially, I don't think, so blood test is one of the diagnostic tools. And like with menopause and other things, it's not really a true reflection of what's going on all the time, because it's a screenshot moment. And as I say, people can have the rheumatoid without having this one factor, this one antibody that they've identified as being the problem. So they're seronegative, and that takes much longer to diagnose. So it's really difficult, I think, for medical professionals. And also totally understand why that has to be in place. It makes treating people holistically and looking at people as individuals much more difficult.
So with the longer the condition that is harder to find, obviously you're not in that case, you were lucky, it came up. What would be the process then? Do you think it would be that they would have another blood test until then finally that snapshot is correct, but that could take years? Or is it that suddenly the hands swell up and that's the obvious, okay, that's the sign, that's the, you've hit the wall?
When we're talking about the rheumatology side, so rheumatology's, until I think you've had some of these things go on, and you probably wouldn't have heard of rheumatology before. And we hear of rheumatism in all books and things like that, but that was kind of almost a colloquial term for aches and pains. Whereas the rheumatoid department, they look after people with systemic inflammatory disease, basically. They're autoimmune conditions for the most part, although they also, within that group, they see people with things like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, myofasciitis and stuff like that. So there's a whole sort of spectrum, if you like, where we don't really understand why these things happen. Fibromyalgia, it's this sort of intense overreaction to stimuli that then is perceived as harmful, dangerous, painful, and is incredibly fatiguing. And you know what? They thought I had that for a while, and I was like, it's not. Because I've seen people that must be, I have so much sympathy for people living with that, because you can't say, here, take this drug and it's going to help. And you can help it with things like antidepressants and stuff. But that is literally your nervous system kind of just misfiring a little bit, which is a lot harder to manage than a chemical reaction, which is then our inflammatory disease, as I have. So yes, there's this whole sort of raft of things. And if you're seronegative, sadly, you'll end up put in the fibromyalgia box, and you'll probably live in there for a very long time, unless your other inflammatory factors are high as well. So, and by that, there's about 4 or 5 different substances they test for in your blood. Again, you go back to the bell curve. are you above this? Then yes, you're into disease. So yes, there's a lot of different factors they can look at. One of the other things that they will do is they'll send you for an ultrasound on your hands and feet. And with this, they're looking for active inflammation, which shows up on the ultrasound, as sort of a brighter feedback, if you like. So like when you're doing an ultrasound to look at pregnancy, there'll be darker areas, brighter areas, and then inflammation actually comes up as sort of having a colour to it as well as just being a brighter feedback. The first time I had that, they actually thought I had cellulitis. So there was all a little bit about how did that happen? And I really don't think it's cellulitis. I haven't got the red skin, the soreness on the surface. Anyway, I saw a nurse specialist who also has rheumatoid, and she said, no, that's not cellulitis. That will be your rheumatoid. So at that point, they left me with just like the entry drug, if you like, into this world of autoimmune drugs of sulfasalazine, and the secondary diagnosis of fibromyalgia, for which I had amitriptyline. Also, they're very good when you first go in. They sort of will give you a steroid shot to try and get your inflammatory levels down, which I've had varying results with those over the last couple of years. So they'll go through this testing process, and it's kind of then, and I really feel for these consultants because they are literally working very, very grey areas. So for me, then this sort of argument back and forth, it's not fibro. I know it's not fibro. Went back and forth for quite a long time. And I think it was probably then in August, they redid the ultrasound, which came back with moderate inflammation, active disease signs. And I was given the option to go up to a stronger drug called methotrexate, which is not very nice. So at that point, I said, can we not just up the sulfasalazine, because I'm okay with that systemically, I'm okay. So another steroid shot, up the sulfasalazine. And then you're into this process of, let's see which drug, and then you go up the level of drugs until you're on biologics, which I'm on now. But yeah.
I'm assuming we will talk about the drugs and the side effects, but I just want to go back again. I think obviously with your background, you knew it wasn't fibromyalgia. You knew it was just, because you know the signs and you've worked with people with those symptoms and conditions. But if you've never had anything like that, you're being guided and you basically listen to your doctor. They say, because you don't know anything else. So if you were heading to the doctor and you have a blood test that isn't very clear or you're not 100% sure, would you suggest that they keep pushing and they keep asking? Because obviously if they get given medication for cellulitis or medication for fibromyalgia and it's not working, because I'm assuming that when you were on the medication for fibromyalgia, did that do anything?
The amitriptyline, it just probably made me more tired. And I guess it probably would have helped balance my mood. Because, I was pretty low at that point. I was crying literally every time I went in the office because you feel like your life's over at this point, which sounds a bit dramatic, but it is just so life limiting. It's just horrendous. And like you say,
it's human because it does feel over. And when you're in pain, you're exhausted all the time. You want somebody to just give you a solution, and
definitely.
And it's a trial and error, and it's a searching that will take time, and pain is very debilitating and very tiring. So you're kind of in this vicious spiral.
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say to somebody who is in that vicious spiral? What would you suggest?
So yeah, you're entirely right in the fact that I'm really lucky that I'm very well informed about these things, and it massively helped me with my self-advocacy. So the tools that you can use to help yourself. Firstly, there's a brilliant charity who has an amazing website called the National Rheumatoid Arthritis Society, or NRAS. There is loads of information on there. You can sign up and go through their training to help you understand the condition better, because a lot of people don't understand that it is a systemic immune system issue as opposed to an osteoarthritis, which is still inflammatory, but let's not go down that route because we could get in that rabbit hole. But, it's which is seen as more of an age-related issue. This is actually, your body sort of misfunctioning somehow. And it will be done in protection of yourself. There will be something that has happened that has switched you into this. But so you've got NRAS, which gives you some really great information. Also Versus Arthritis, which is a really good website to go and have a look around. But one of the best tools is called Rheuma Buddy, which is an app that you can download. And I appreciate not everyone's completely tech savvy, but it's it is a really, really good tool in the fact that you have a map of your body. You can indicate where you feel in pain. You can put your pain levels 1 to 10 on there, fatigue levels, mood. So you can record all these different things every single day. It'll prompt you to do it. And and you can write a text in there as well. You can also put in your medical appointments when you've seen people, what you talked about and what the outcome of that consultation was. So it helps you track things better. And if you forget, and especially with this, like the brain fog is ridiculous. Like now I have so many apps that just help me function every day. So you can have a look at those things. A lot of the thing I got asked at the beginning was, are you perimenopausal? I thought, well, I don't know. I have a coil fitted. I don't have periods. So I don't know, because, it is often related around the sort of perimenopause sort of period. So it might help you track if you are having periods. Does it get worse or different? And fluctuations of the hormones. Have you had a blood test related to female hormones? So you can put all this in one place, which then means you can go in on, which is much better. And I think we often see.
Was very interesting that you've mentioned throughout the conversation so far is you have been tracking it from the beginning. So from the start, from the first pains, it sounds that, sort of anybody who's suffering from pains, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or anything else, tracking it, write it down, see what it's doing, see how it's working, even if this app is not related to your condition. It sounds like it's a very good app to just sort of notice what's happening, because we forget, life takes over and we forget the dates and the time. And if we can track it, then you can go to your GP or the consultant and say categorically, well, this is what's happening to me.
100%. And there's so many apps that you can do it now. If you've got an iPhone, their health app, you can track your periods, you can track blood tests, you can track your weight, all sorts of things in there. There's journaling ones, or you can just keep a paper journal. I mean, sometimes it's just satisfying writing things down on paper. So just keeping a journal, if you're sort of going through any challenges, whether it be tiredness, fatigue, just not feeling right in yourself, your sleep, weight gain. Oh my God, weight gain for women in their 40s is just awful. And then beyond, because of our hormones, is just crazy. So if you can keep track of your eating, what you're eating, and that also goes as well with this disease. A lot of it can be nutrition based.
Also, because I know that you've gone through the allopathic, as in Western medicine, but you tried the holistic, and how far down the road did you go with the holistic? Because I think it's important to mention both, because one is not than the other. And I'm very much in agreement that we need to, basically, in the same way as we need to look at the entire system, we should approach the system with both directions if possible. And if diet is a big one, what we eat, because what we eat can cause inflammation. So off you go. Tell me about what you did.
So I think last January I was in that whole boat of I don't want to be on drugs if I don't have to be. So is there something else that I can find that is going to help me? And if you join any of the groups, the sorts of support groups on Facebook or wherever, there's a lot of people saying, oh, I heal my rheumatoid arthritis by not eating gluten or something like that. And yes, it will work for some people. So I did an elimination diet in January last year, which basically meant that I cut out all the things that are kind of known to be irritants of our system, or potential irritants of our system. So the main ones really, it will be sugar, caffeine, alcohol, dairy and gluten. So you cut those out, you don't eat them for 4 weeks or so, and then you introduce them back one by one in a specific order that I can't quite remember now, but there's loads of information online about it. Also with this, now again, this is the brain fog bit speaking, there's a group of proteins that are found in FODMAP. So, and I can't remember what it stands for, but the FODMAP idea is basically that there are proteins within different things. So, for example, pulses and lentils and things can be an irritant for some people. And I found out that about me. So I know that they will give me stomach pain, and beans and lentils will cause a slight increase in my inflammation and things. So that was really useful. Sadly, it didn't massively impact my sort of pain specifically. One of the other things I did was, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Zoe, but they're doing a lot of study around nutrition, and trying to rewrite basically the advice that is given on a national basis around how we eat.
So the Zoe is the little thing that you put in the back of your arm, is that right?
Yeah, so they're a research company, and they run this system where you can have a membership, and with that you have a blood test monitor, continuous glucose monitor, which goes in the back of your arm for 2 weeks. They test your poo, so you take a sample of your poo and you send it off to them, and also little blood tests to look at your blood fat, which are fingertip blood tests. So you send all them away, that's all analysed, and they come back to you and say, these are your results, this is how your body responds to sugar, this is how it responds to fat, these are the microbes that you have in your digestive system, here are the good ones, here are the bad ones, this is what you can now eat to make you have more of the good ones and fill in the gaps where you haven't got particular good ones, basically. So really, really useful. It definitely made me review my diet because, yeah, I ate reasonably well, but I was a bit of a habit eater, if that makes sense. So I would have, if I was going to have veggies, I had the same sort of thing. I rarely sat down and had a salad because it was always just a faff. But, one of the big things that came out of that and has made a big difference for me, maybe not so much my pain and inflammation, but me as my energy levels and things, has been increasing to 30 different plant types across the week. So that seems overwhelming, but when you think tea's one, coffee is one, spices, herbs, they're all sources of plant goodness, if you like. So the different proteins and chemicals and fibres that are in them. And then the other thing is eat the rainbow.
Does that really mean that you need to have a salad with 20 leaves every day?
No. So it's just across the week. It's like, and it's amazing how many things are plants and getting rid of anything processed, really, or over processed. So like I still have quite a bit of cheese because it's fermenting. That's really good for your gut bacteria. So these are all things that I've learned and have made me feel better in myself. And I think being able to be better in myself has made me a bit more optimistic and able to manage my disease better from a mental health type of perspective. So my digestive is better and everything.
It gives you the sense that you're in control rather than it controlling you.
Yeah, definitely.
A little bit about what other things have you tried?
So I went to see a naturopath, which was amazing. And it is not cheap, I know, but and we know this as being self-employed therapists, you're paying for these people, their knowledge and their ability to guide you and all the years that they've studied and able to do that. And so I definitely recommend at least going and having a consultation. You'll come out with a bit of a plan and a bit more knowledge. She gave me some herbal medicines. I don't know whether they helped because it was kind of just starting to sulfasalazine, and then I had to stop them once I went to methotrexate because there's interactions between the drugs and the herbs. But she was she literally sat there, and honestly, she was incredible. And she sat there and she said, right, so we basically drew bubbles, so my asthma, my rheumatoid, my inflammation and pain around reproductive organs, this sort of ongoing back pain that I'd had. So all these things, and she sort of was drawing them together, and she's like, it is systemic inflammation. And that's how they're very much holistic and looking at those, and the hypermobility, which causes inflammation. And there is quite a correlation between people with hypermobility who end up with autoimmune disease. But yeah, so she was really good at looking at that, looking at lifestyle. She talked to me about things like unnoticed molds in the house, exposure to heavy,
as in on the walls.
Yeah, so the spores that kind of live within our home, even if we can't visibly see. So having plants in the house, making sure there's good ventilation, things like that. What else? Oh, she talked about hair testing, genetic and epigenetic testing, which I still haven't done yet. It's on my list, but that isn't cheap either. So I kind of have to save up to do these little things, but slowly working through them. I've done the hair test, and interestingly came back that I have a lot of mercury in my body, and mercury tends to sit in your joints. So that for me was a bit of a aha moment. But how do you get rid of it? So, there are options like celery supplements, they call it cilantro, and things like algae treatments, and take like a form of clay, which helps you detox. I haven't been consistent with that, I have to say. It's one of the things that I just need to get into that headspace and be able to do properly. That's sort of a self-chelation being removal of heavy metals from the body. I would love it if on the NHS we could have that root cause analysis. So let's actually see what you have got in your body that shouldn't be in your body. If you can get rid of that, then who knows? The inflammation, the disease might go into remission almost completely. We are always absorbing these. If you eat fish, you're always going to have some mercury in your body and things. So yeah, I think that's probably, and obviously knowing myself is just keeping moving. I've had some really nice massage, amazing Reiki with my friend Nick. And yeah, it's just really trying to keep me functioning and almost embracing this as a educational thing rather than seeing it as something that is life ending, which it felt like for a long time.
So tell me a little bit about the medications that you have gone through and the side effects, because obviously, you know, you've had the steroids, you had, forgot the first one, they're all the ones. So it sounds like you've gone through quite a few processes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so when I first started out, like I say, I was managing on over-counter anti-inflammatories, painkillers, paracetamol, ibuprofen, and they just weren't cutting. I mean, anyone who's sprained anything and you're trying to manage it with ibuprofen, it kind of helps a bit, but you know, and that's when my body was all the time living like all my hand, all the knuckles, all the joints in my hand, my wrists, my ankles, my feet, my toes. It was like sprains in them all the time. And so, yeah, Christmas 2022 was miserable. So literally, as soon as the doctors opened in the new year, I was straight to them. They gave me naproxen. And with that, you have to take the PPI inhibitor, so blockers, so they're basically stomach liners, we would know them as, I guess, which all have horrendous effects on your gut, which is like the centre of our universe, really. We're sort of starting to realise. And I was on them for all of last year, probably. In February, I got given sulfasalazine, which is, as I understand, it kind of inhibits some of that inflammatory process by stopping certain proteins, certain molecules within the process. Started off on, and you kind of have to work up through to them so your body doesn't completely go, no thanks, and make you very poorly whilst you're taking them. So I ended up taking 6 a day of those 3 each end of the day, eventually, with an naproxen. Side effects for those, loss of appetite, hair loss, sickness mainly really around that, sometimes headaches. There's loads. I mean, you look at them and you're folding out an A3 piece of paper that is covered in potential side effects. And it is terrifying when you first start on them, but then the desperation hits. You're like, I need this just to actually get through the day. They turn your wee bright yellow. That's an interesting one. But yeah, they were okay, to be fair. I didn't really have a lot of problems. I did have quite a lot of hair loss at the beginning, but lucky enough, have quite a lot of hair, so you couldn't really tell. It was coming out by the handful. So I think anyone with thin hair, that would be devastating. That would just be awful.
You moved from that to the next. Did you move because they requested it or because it was time to try a new prescription?
Desperation, basically. So by December, I was getting pressure in my chest and throat, which was really scary. The doctor put it down to indigestion, which I don't think it was, but they took me off the naproxen at that point, which then my whole world fell apart because that was literally the only thing. I mean, I was in pain all the time, still had loads of inflammation, but it made it, if not bearable, I could function. And at about the same time, I ended up with a pretty horrendous chest infection. I had to stop taking the sulfasalazine because they work on that sort of whole immune system side. You end up with a suppressed immune system, but sulfasalazine is kind of the gentlest, if you like, so it suppresses it the least. In the midst of all this, I had hives all over my body for 10 weeks. And they kept saying, it's not the drugs. And then I was like, is it rheumatoid? And they're saying, no, it's not that. And I'm like, there's a link here, folks. You know, histamine is in the inflammatory, in the immune system, in the inflammatory side of things. Anyway, I was on antihistamines for a lot of last year as well. No idea what was causing it. These are the joys, the gifts that the disease that keeps giving. Then in December, I was incredibly ill. Used crutches because my ankle was so bad I couldn't stand on it. And literally, my poor sister was staying. She's over from Australia. She's staying with me, and in the morning, she's listening to me cry my eyes out because I can hardly even sit up in bed. I couldn't put weight on my feet to get to the toilet. So I was wetting myself and things, just trying to get there, because you'd leave it as long as possible because the thought of standing on your feet, bless her. And because it affects my hands as well, like trying to use crutches was nigh on impossible. It was in my shoulder. I couldn't sleep. Oh, it was just horrendous. In December, I cause you have this amazing system with your rheumatology clinic where there's a helpline that you can ring between 7, I think mine's 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning. And the nurse will get back to you and let you say, you know, if you've got a chest infection, stop taking your drugs for the week, or, you know, or they will try and get you then back into clinic to see someone. Did that, saw a different rheumatologist, and he went, you have to be on methotrexate. Was moved on to that. And because this, honestly, you think the side effects are bad for sulfasalazine, you look at methotrexate, which is also used as a chemotherapy drug. And I really didn't want to start that over Christmas. I started that on the 29th of December. And yeah, I get a bit, I call it my methotrexate hangover. So I feel a bit rough the next day, and it is just like having a hangover. But that started to improve me. And by February, I was kind of felt reasonably, I still had pain, but it was nowhere near what it had been. Then I went in for my 3-month review at that point, because they kind of say give 12 weeks to see whether the drug's working. And saw a different rheumatologist again. She said, no, you still got high disease activity, so we need to put you on a biologic. I'm shocked at this point because I was so much better than I had been. And this is where it gets to that like Stockholm syndrome where you're like, no, it's fine. I'm better than I was, you know. And anyway, so they put on this biologic, which I'll talk about in a sec. In this time, I'd had 2 steroid shots and 2 rounds of steroid tablets. I'm just trying to help manage. I mean, this is when people talk about, oh, when did you have your last flare? And I'm like, I haven't stopped flaring since October 22. So yes, so then I'm now on adalimumab, which is a nice injected form of drug, which terrified me to start with. Not very keen on injections. So these are like a pen, and you either put them in your thigh or into your stomach, and you end up with a nice sharp spin floating around your house, which then also doesn't really add to that mental identity of being ill or not being ill. But yes, this has been an absolute game changer. And I get it. So this is why you work through these things, because it's the impact on your health, potential impact on your health, which they're always very reluctant to give you immunosuppressant things that are going to really make you, you know, things like pneumonia becomes really high risk, and all these things that are like, you know, well, I don't want that. Actually, now I can't live the way I am, so I need to take them. So biologics, I think the consultant, they said it costs about £10,000 a year per person to have these drugs. I inject myself once a fortnight. I have methotrexate once a week. And the combination literally overnight changed my life. And I literally feel like a normal human being again now. I can do most things. I'm back into a rehab/fitness routine. Injecting yourself, I was really nervous about it, but you get a really nice introduction with a nurse who sits there either online or in person, demonstrates it on themselves, and then watches you do it and sits with you for half an hour or so afterwards to make sure you don't have any reactions. So, you know, you press it against your skin, you have to press reasonably hard, which, you know, when you know you're going to hurt yourself, isn't the easiest. The pin shoots out, the needle shoots out, you hold there for 5 seconds, the drug goes in, and that's it, done. So it's a bit stingy, but I wouldn't even say it's as bad as having a vaccine. It's fine, actually. And it's given my life back, so I'm really, really thankful. It's just that typical thing of, why do they cost so much? I don't really want to be on it forever, because as you can hear, I'm full of bugs again now. And every time I see my niece and nephew, I end up ill, which isn't the best way to live. But I will take it over how I was feeling last Christmas any day.
So it sounds like doing the conventional medicine has actually saved your life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I can think again, I can move again. Like I say, I'm walking the dog again. We're working back up to doing more. I've ridden my horse for the first time in forever this last few weeks. And all of that for my mental health is so important. When you're I don't have kids, but I have a level of responsibility to looking after these animals. And I don't, apart from my parents who are amazing, but I can't keep putting on them. They're in their 60s, 70s, and I have to carry on. I have to keep moving. I have to look after them physically, and I have to be earning money to make sure that I can keep them. And, you know, it'd be very easy to say sell them, but they're my family. So yeah, having all that back is incredible for me. So,
Shreya, you've really, really gone through it. It's hard to hear from the outside and you hear people that say, I've got rheumatoid arthritis and I have flare-ups, but you don't really understand what it means until you hear your story, and and you don't understand what if you see somebody who has it, who's functioning, we need to bear in mind that they didn't get to that point of functioning just overnight. They probably would have gone through a similar story to you.
Definitely.
Point of I can function.
But also we're really good at hiding it and you kind of forget what it's like to not be in pain. So, just brushing your hand against something. I couldn't undo jars, I couldn't undo tins, honestly, it's all these things and you find ways around. Makes you very inventive about finding ways around things. But also you just get so used to it that people don't really see that you're lame. They might think, oh, you're walking a bit slowly, but you're lame in both feet, so you're evenly lame, and you just get sick of moaning about it, so you stop talking about it. Yeah.
So I guess you're in your 40s, and a lot of people associate rheumatoid arthritis or arthritis with the elderly.
Yeah.
Granny can't open a jar, or that she's having difficulty going up and down the stairs. But when you're young, you don't associate those type of symptoms and conditions with somebody your age. One of the things that I always notice when working in clinic is that telling the person that the body's speaking to you.
Yeah.
So when you have a condition, when you have an ailment, when you have pain, it's the body saying to you, something's not right. I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And what tends to happen with most people is that the body will send you little messages.
Yeah.
We don't listen to them. We don't pay attention, or we kind of go, well, it's this, and it's that, and it's the other, until then suddenly the body goes, you know what, I've had enough, and and that hammer basically forces you to change, and that's you changing your lifestyle, assessing how you eat, assessing what's happening, your emotional well-being, your mind, and we need to learn to listen to the signs before we get the hammer.
Definitely, 100%. And it's so true. And it's that we talk about mind-body connection, but it's remembering that the brain is part of the body, the mind is part of the body. What happens in our brain affects our body. What happens in our body affects our brain. We're one. It's not just a connection. It is entirely one thing. And all that emotional rubbish that you've gone through in the past, I look at abusive relationships, then repeating patterns with relationships because I couldn't get out of that pattern. And that took me a long time to sort out. And recognizing now that I'm almost addicted to stress. So I go and run my own business and try to run before I could walk and putting myself under this stress all the time. And so now I'm very much about how can I get rid of that stress? How can I make this better? Is it acceptance? Is it just going, let them? Is it finding another path? And that's kind of, in terms of my working life, I've kind of got to now is accepting that I probably can't do what I love all the time now. So I'll go and get a job, which I've been really fortunate to be offered an amazing job with an amazing charity that I'm really looking forward to starting in July. I'm really passionate about and still having a really great effect on the world. And I can still then do my therapy work part-time, and I'll have probably more to give people in that. So it's going to be more powerful in that 1 day a month that I do, or 2 days a month, than seeing people for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and empty my cup every single day. So
you could start again. If you could write a diary and explain to somebody, sort of what I wish I would have been told, or what I wish I would have known before entering this journey of rheumatoid arthritis, what would you write in that journal?
First, I think, the top line has to be, this is not the end of your life, and it will get better. One way or another, it will. I think self-advocacy and informed advocacy is really important. And part of, this whole charity side that I'm going to do along with NRAS and things like that is going to be providing resources for people. And I literally am going to try and test everything. See the occupational therapists. Oh my God, they were amazing. They made splints. They gave me compression gloves, wrist splints. I've got a good box over there, just looking at it now, is a box full of different splints for different joints. but they're expensive. So knowing that this is going to cost you money if you want to try and actually keep moving, keep doing things. But yeah, take the help as well, probably. It's really, I live on my own, which is a bit scary sometimes. And especially I live with a slightly psychopathic German Shepherd who doesn't like people. It's the thought of if anything did go wrong and I ended up in the heap at the bottom of the stairs, you know, how the paramedics going to get to me? So all these things cross your mind. So it's kind of having a plan. And do I need to sleep downstairs for the next week or something particularly bad because I can't get up and down? Do I need to buy that porta potty just so it stops me having to go up and downstairs? It's kind of finding those workarounds and being open to it, not seeing it as embarrassing, and asking for help is a big thing. That's been a big lesson for me, is going, I can't do that anymore. Please, can you help? But yeah, I think the main things are it will get better. Try every angle. Definitely review your holistic, you know, the holistic side of your life, as in what can I do to help me holistically, the whole body, the whole person, help me feel better. And yeah, informed advocacy. They're probably the main things, I think.
Yeah, amazing. And would you, with the, you know, so you say that the splints and all of that is expensive. So if somebody didn't have the finances to help themselves in that regard, what can they do? Are there organizations? Is there support? What can they do to get these splints and this support?
Again, I'm not really finding anything that would this sort of fund that. And again, that is something that within my little, I'm still kind of trying to figure out what exactly we can provide, and whether it's training, education, whether it's day retreats, whether it's that sort of, let's see whether we can have a pot of money or splints that we can buy in bulk to send out to people. You know, the NHS is under so much pressure at the minute, and I really feel bad. My occupational therapist, she was incredible. So we think about occupational health as being someone who sets your computer up at work, but it's entirely different from that. So she made me splints herself, resting splints, so I could just let my hands sit in a nice neutral position at night and take some of the pressure off my joints. And I was actually given, I was really fortunate, and it depends what they've got in stock and how well funded they are. She gave me a set of compression gloves and a set of wrist braces. So if they can, they will help. Ask the physio when you can go and see an occupational therapist. The physio was really good, you know. When she laughed at me, she's like, "You're moving really well." And I was like, "Yeah, because I want to keep moving." So, you know, and that, I guess, is the other thing that, keep moving as much as you can. But yes, the splints, the occupational therapy should be able to help you. You can find them on Amazon, you know, ones that will work. They might not be as effective. I mean, I've got some brilliant ones that they gave me, which have these great, I know you probably can't see that they've got like lace up, where you can pull them tight through laces, and really easy when your hands aren't working. But yeah, Amazon have a reasonably priced selection. A lot of mine have come from Amazon. I've got shoulders, I've got sling, I've got ankle braces, knee braces. I had a hernia brace because that was the other joy that I have, is a nice hernia. Back braces. I mean, I've probably spent best part of £200 on things. You kind of chase it around your body a bit, and you might just be lucky that it's just your hands and feet. Lucky. There we go. This is where you end up with it. But yeah, I think wrist braces, compression gloves, and perhaps a foot support. Again, probably not too much. We have 3 different arches in our feet, and what you want to try and support is the metatarsal arch, which is at the front. It's not the big arch under the midfoot, because that'll take some of the pressure off your sore joints by your toes. So I think if those were the 3, I would go for them. I think you can probably buy all 3 for about 30 quid from Amazon. Yeah.
And holistically, what have you found the most useful? For example, whether it's Reiki, whether it's massage, whether it's changing your diet, a combination of all 3. What do you think? Okay, well, if somebody needs to save up, what should they consider spending it on?
Okay. So I'd say eat well is probably the top of the list, and it doesn't have to be expensive. And people, I think, get put off about thinking about going to places like farm shops and butchers and delis. But bear in mind, most of these, you can just buy what you're going to use that night. And that for me is really important. As someone living on my own, if I go buy a bag from the supermarket, it goes off and it becomes very expensive, and you've thrown away a lot, and it's really wasteful. Also, I like my sustainability side as well. So it's all generally sourced fairly locally, but you can go and buy 1 potato or 2 tomatoes or 3 apples. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot, and you can just buy enough to feed you a good meal on that day. So investing in good food, I think, is probably first. And then I think touch therapy, especially again, if you live on your own. I'm lucky I've got pets, so my mum and dad fairly local, so I can get hugs and things when I need them. But if you're living on your own, you're quite lonely, having that touch therapy is so important. And finding a therapist like Nick, she's incredible because she does both massage and Reiki. The Reiki's been good at helping me recenter when you go off down the catastrophizing route of, oh God, I'm never going to do anything again. I'm useless. I've failed, or this, because you have this narrative.
So to explain to the viewers and the listeners who might not understand what Reiki is, what is Reiki?
So I guess the best way to put it is it's an energetic exchange. So your therapist might use crystals, they might not. It can be done in person, it can be done at a distance. Depends on your therapist and what they provide, really. So it's just all about energy exchange. I know people think that's a bit woo-woo, but there seems to be more and more evidence around our electromagnetic fields and things like that. So there is an actual tangible physical element to this that we maybe don't perceive as well, because we don't really believe things we can't see or feel. Or
it's interesting that we don't believe it, but it's atoms and it's physics. Yet, even Wi-Fi, we believe that
exactly
connect it to a different room. It's good, but yeah.
And and they're really incredible. And sometimes she'll come out at the end of a session and say something, and go, "Oh my God, yeah!" And so the other day, I just decided that my latest little venture in trying to resurrect my business in a similar form just isn't going well, and I was really pretty down. I'd had a lot of tears the day before. She sort of said, "I just feel like you're full of water." She said, "I just want to cuddle you." She said, "All your fire's gone out." And I was like, oh my God, that's how I feel. So there were more tears. But it's just so lovely that someone just gets it. And even if they don't really 100% get everything that's behind it, yeah, she's very intuitive. And I think a lot of people who do the energy work and they can give you different perspectives on things, which is sometimes helpful when you're stuck in the mire of, I'm in pain, I'm ill. So
amazing. Well, Rhian, you're really an inspiration, and I'm in awe of what you've gone through, and the fact that you're sitting in front of me with a smile and a giggle, and and you're striving to help more people and do your charity and work for another charity and things like that. It's really, I take my hat off to you, young lady. It's amazing. Really, really is. And I hope that people who listen and watch this can kind of say, okay, as you said, it's not going to be forever. You can improve. You just need to find the route. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yeah. And as you said, it might be that this is just a thing that is trying to push you into change, and change we're scared of, but it's been painful, but ultimately I think it's been a really good thing for me, if that makes sense. So yeah, change doesn't have to be horrendous, and it's kind of what you make of it. So it's reframing and gratitude and all that, which sounds again a bit woo-woo, but honestly, if I just sat here and went, oh my God, I hurt all the time, whereas I can say, no, I can use this to help others, then it gives you a purpose and a reason to sort of smile, I guess. So yeah.
So, and you're still walking and you're still functioning, and you haven't given in.
No, and I won't either. I'm determined not to. And I'm more than happy to chat to anyone, because I don't ever want anyone to feel like they're alone with this. So,
amazing.
And I think awareness is everything with this. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your beautiful conversation with me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been really lovely to chat. Thank you.